Is data a blessing or a curse? Brought to you by Adastra, this is a must-listen podcast that inspires and advises people who are serious about digitalization. It sounds great. Each business unit owns and manages its own data, and the data is available for the rest of the company. That approach is essential for the data mesh. But can large companies really achieve that? How realistic is it? I'm going to talk about this with Petr Žáček, Director of Product Management at Atacama. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
For whom are data products? I mean, for which companies?
I think that data products can be really used by any company, but it's not the data mesh that will be easier for many companies. So I should elaborate on that. With the data products, what I kind of liked maybe a little bit more is how it used to be called before the data products and data mesh were established. It was called as an approach to data as a product, which maybe signifies a little bit more about what is it about. It's about the mindset of the organization. It's about the mindset of the teams that are owning the data to really not treat them as something that is just there, but treat them as a product that they are creating for other teams. Which means that it's not just about the data, it's also about the information, what is the data for, how it should be used, what is in the data set, information about how you can access the data, and maybe provide some additional, let's say, information about some restrictions or consents and things like that. So when you think about a product as some physical object that you are shipping to a shop, then you basically have the product itself, then you put it in the box with the manual, with some information about where it's coming from, with all of the info that you actually have as part of the packaging. So would you say that the packaging is not part of the product? Some might say that, but in the end, it's really the whole package that you deliver to the shop. And you also have to, of course, figure out how people can get to the product, how they can reach the shop, like if it's going through the shop or if you're putting it somewhere in the, in some physical shop. So data products are very similar to that. It's really, I have some data, I want to provide it to other people, to other teams. There is a purpose behind the data. There is a reason why I'm providing this data set. And if I do all of that, I can maybe even have better analytics over how people are really using the data. If I am, really satisfying their needs, or if there is a need for this data set, or I'm doing it just because of I'm bored and no one is really using that. So the mindset to approach data as a product or deliver the data products is something that I believe every company can adopt. It doesn't have to be adopted for every team, every part of the organization, but it is a very healthy way how to look at the data and how to make sure that the ownership is something that is just there by default. It's not something that you have to think about after the fact. It's basically part of the data delivery. Someone owns it, someone is responsible for it, and someone tells you exactly why they created it, what is it for, and how you should use it.
You mentioned pretty important thing, data ownership. Who owns the data in most of the companies now?
I'm not sure if I can say anything about most of the companies because, again, I believe it's very different in different companies. Unfortunately, in certain cases, it could even be some IT teams owning the data for the business, which is definitely an anti-pattern. And, it's really the way how it used to be many years ago when the data were technical asset. Some technical teams were preparing it for the business. Business maybe didn't need exactly this data, they needed something else. And there was this eternal fight between business and IT to figure out like how the data should look like. Nowadays, it's definitely more in the hands of business. And what we are seeing, of course, is a sort of emergence of really data teams. So teams that are focused solely on the data. They are not necessarily part of any business function, or they could be, of course, as part of data mesh. But their responsibility is really to make sure the data is correct and that maybe the data product that they provide is actually something that's valuable. So it has shifted outside of the IT. It has shifted more to the business. I wouldn't say that we really see the full ownership in the business, and it's not necessarily because there will be some technical problem, but it's the mindset problem.
If I have some kind of central data team, I still solve the similar problems as I had with the situation when IT was owning the data, right? I centralize the decisions. I centralize the processes.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes, exactly. So the establishing of the data team on itself doesn't solve anything, but it's then the fact that these data teams could exist in different business functions or across the organization. And that's when it starts getting interesting, because that's when certain teams that are focusing on certain type of data will be focusing on certain data assets. Other teams will be doing something else. And then together, they might be providing some additional data sets to the third team. So there's like some collaboration between them. There's some decentralization. And that is something that companies would like to see. At the same time, many companies would still like to have the full control over the teams because they may not necessarily trust them, that they will do things correctly. So again, it's some sort of fight that we are always seeing in the data management, the need for centralization and enforcement of policies, enforcement of processes, and decentralization, more effectivity, more agility, and things like that. And I'm probably not going to go directly into data mesh, but in general, how the data products can help us here is because we can still enforce or at least establish some guidelines for the whole organization, some expectations from the data products, but then we can decentralize the actual management and even the individual, let's say, contracts between the different teams on top of the data products can be a little bit more decentralized, because in some cases I'll be providing, data about customers. And if I'll be providing them to marketing department, maybe it's not that big of a deal if I will have some problems in there, if I will maybe missing some customers, or if I will have some problems with unification. If I'll be providing the same data to reporting team, then obviously it might be an issue. So I can have a slightly different contract between them, and provide actually multiple data products from the same data set, but I'm responsible for it and I know exactly where it's going.
And all the teams creating and using data products will need to build another skills on top of that what they already have, right?
Maybe not. I guess we'll see in time, because of course data products are a great concept. Data mesh is a great concept, but at the same time, not everyone is really adopting it. I haven't seen a company that fully implemented data mesh, but I have seen companies that are trying to implement data mesh. And I don't mean it in a bad way that they are trying and failing. It's just, this is where they are. This is where they are at this point. And they basically have to think about how the organization need to change. So it's not necessarily about the skills of individual people, even though that can be part of it, but it's also about really thinking how the organization should work, how it needs to change, how it maybe needs to be reorganized and restructured. And obviously, part of that needs to be some sort of tooling. I always like to say that most of the data management, data governance problems can be solved with a piece of paper and a pen if you are brave enough. But you probably don't want to do it. It doesn't scale, it costs money. So some sort of tools are important. And this is where, again, it gets a little bit challenging, because different software vendors, different tools that exist, they are focusing on certain aspects of the data products, maybe some aspects of the data mesh. But since data mesh is not just a technological problem, it's always a little bit incomplete. And it's up to the organizations to really figure out, this is what we want to do, this is the tools that we need, and this is how we need to be structured. And they need to maybe upskill some of their teams based on how they choose to approach this. So it depends. In some teams, again, in some organizations, they may already be there. They may already have the mindset, and they are only looking for a way how to make it official. In some cases, it may be very unnatural for them to think about data as an asset, and they will have to change that mindset.
And can you just mention some type of industries which, for which is valid what you already said?
Well, I think that with the data maturity, in general, the banking financial services are definitely ahead. The reason mainly being that they always were subjected to regulations. They always, I guess they had to figure out what's wrong with their data a little bit faster than some of the other industries. So for them, it definitely makes sense. And also from the let's say, organizational point of view, when within bank you will have multiple functions, multiple ways of addressing the customers, it makes sense. So you will have someone just working on data for mortgages, someone working on data for, credit cards, and it should actually fit together, because to some extent, this is how they already have to work. Maybe they were more successful, maybe less successful, but it's not unnatural for the organization. Unfortunately, of course, there are organizations that will see this as a little bit more unnatural, because they are not used to work with data at all. And that's mainly, I guess I don't want to pinpoint specific industry, but from my experience, retail, manufacturing, like these sort of industries were always more focused on the business itself, of course. The data was a little bit afterthought in some cases, or they were like very specific. So, focused on really one domain, but everything else was kind of in a mess.
Construction companies would be the same, right? Because
for example,
they deal with like the physical products.
Exactly. I think that every company that's more focused on the real world and real products and real things will be struggling with this, because even the people working in the company won't fully understand like why it's really important to think about the data when they just have to deliver this physical product, right? So it may be a little bit more tough for them, but I think there is still a way how to kind of establish this data product mindset even into these companies. And it can really start with some simple use cases or well-defined use cases. So another thing that I like to say around the data products is that if you have a well-established, like stable and functioning MDM, then you are probably delivering a data product, because the master data provided by the MDM, they are curated, they are somehow fixed or improved. There is some ownership. There is a metadata layer or some information about where data is coming from, what is it for, what does it contain, and all of that. So if you do master data management right, you are actually very close to have something like a data product. And in that case, it may be a good use case to start it. Then again, of course, starting master data management, if you don't have experiences with data in general, might be tough. So
yeah, we should mention that Atacama delivers AI-powered master data management platform. So because of that, you are my guest exactly for this topic. But do you see by your clients that they really understand what data product is about?
I see lots of assumptions and lots of simplifications. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong if they just have their own interpretation of the data product. What I think is important is that they are even thinking about the data product. Mm-hmm. And this is repeating the mindset, but I think it's really essential for this, because if we will go to some definitions of data products, then someone might be saying, "Oh, you don't have the information about the data quality of the data you're providing, or you don't have a well-defined contract of the data product, or you don't have, something. So it's not a data product, and you have to do it again." Well, I would say that at least something, right? At least some process, at least some way of creating something resembling data product will move the company forward, and it will help them to adopt the mindset and improve it in the future. So, yeah.
If I decide to work with master data management, if I decide to start building data products, what are the biggest obstacles that I will need to solve or overcome?
I would maybe just quickly add that we are, of course, not doing just the master data management, but within Atacama One platform, we have some additional capabilities, also focusing on, of course, mainly focus on data quality within the rest of the platform, but providing some additional capabilities around data cataloging and some business glossary, lineage analysis, and things like that. And I think that
all this should be part of the data product, right?
Exactly where I'm going. So I would say that really the understanding of the data and establishing the ownership and finding the gaps is how you need to start. And this is where tools can help. Again, like 10 years ago, what people would be doing, they would be analyzing databases by dumping the data somewhere, doing some ad hoc profiling, like trying to understand what is where. And especially if there were some old systems that no one even know, like who really owns the system, it was very hard to find out what data is in there and what are the gaps and like who should actually work with the data. Nowadays, it's a little bit more easier because we have lots of tools for really discovery of the data, analysis of the whole systems, and understanding what sort of data is in there. And these tools can also kind of allow the companies to establish the ownership a little bit faster because they can see it in front of them. They can see there is a data set, it contains this sort of data, the system is owned by this team, so I know where to go, who to talk to. I can see the data is used by some system or it's maybe coming from certain system. So I can have, again, people to talk to understand if they are using it, how they are using it, if they are owning it or just, assuming someone owns it. And I can really map the situation in the organization. It's still some work, of course, to do it properly. And again, it will depend on the maturity of the organization, where they are, but it's much easier right now. And it's the first step, how to understand it. And then if you will understand that there is maybe super important report that some team is creating, some executive report on data quality, then you can establish that as a data product and say, okay, you are really responsible for that. You have to deliver this report with certain additional information, and you have to treat it as a data product. And you treat as a data product just the report itself, or you treat as a data product like all the data set? So what is under that? That's a good question. I would personally start with treating the report as the data product. As a first step. That is using some data that's coming from somewhere else. And I think that the natural way is then start to think about the data that are used for the report and finding out, okay, where is it coming from? Is it owned by someone? Is it not another data product that's actually delivered by a different team? And you can, from like one simple use case or simple data set or simple data product that you establish, you can start kind of mapping it out from there, seeing where is it used, if it's then changed and the ownership switches because the team is using data in a different way and preparing something new, or going to the upstream, looking where data is coming from, who owns the original data, if that's actually established or not, if you can even trust the data for your report. And all of these things will naturally kind of come from one of the teams starting to think about the data product, because they will suddenly have the needs for the other teams and they will be kind of pushing them in that way as well.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to ask you anyway, because if I have the report and I want to know that I can trust the data, that it answers my question in the proper way. So I really need to understand where the data comes from, how are they gathered, and what exactly the data describes, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And again, we might be, let's say, expecting some shift with AI coming in and actually giving lots of information around the data products and maybe gathering it from, whatever information repositories we have. But I would argue that, again, for the AI to function properly, you do need to have the information somewhere. So having a way how to establish the process for creating the data products, having maybe some tooling where we understand exactly as you described, maybe the lineage, the consuming systems, the data quality, the ownership and all of that, then suddenly what we can achieve through AI is, of course, to simplify the process of obtaining the trust. Because I don't have to really analyze everything. I don't have to go through all of this information to really start trusting it. But the information is in there and I can use some tools such as AI to basically summarize for me that it is okay, that we have all of the information we need and we can move forward. So it's some sort of acceleration on top of that. But in the end, the ownership has to lie somewhere and some people have to have that. So.
How long does it take to build data product? And we are sitting in Czech Republic, so for a large company in Czech Republic, which is maybe medium size in US, right? Or small one in US.
The traditional answer is, of course, it depends.
I know, but does it take weeks or does it take months?
It can be both. The question is if it's the first data product that we have, or if it's something that we are used to do and we are just using existing process, right? So establishing it for the first time, that might be painful. And we are talking
about month, right?
Yeah, I think so, because
several months.
Again, the issues are really organization, like really figuring out how it should look like in the organization, who is responsible for that, making sure that everyone is aligned with the process. Doesn't make sense to create a data product that no one consumes. So this is, I guess, the biggest challenge, and that's why data mesh, that of course aims to adopt this to the full extent and really have decentralized teams using data products, is something that's very hard to implement, because it's not a technological problem on its own. So if various organizations are looking to implement data mesh, they can't just buy the tool. It just doesn't work that way. So they have to really think about what they need to do. They may, of course, get help from some professional services companies, some consultants, and that's perfectly fine. But it will still take some time, because it may also need, restructuring of the teams, hiring new people, and things like that. If we have the process established at least a little bit, then the creation of data product, and now I'm, let's say, looking like 1 year or 2 years ahead, I would say it should be like on few clicks, right? It should be very easy, because you should have all of the information in place. You should have everything established, and you're literally just saying, well, I see these data coming in. It's maybe some data products from different teams. I need it for a specific purpose. So I'm going to create a data product that will be consumed by someone else.
Yeah, but this is the Atacama's vision, right?
Of course.
And the reality?
And the reality is that it will depend, unfortunately, on the tooling at that point, because ultimately the data will have to reside somewhere. It will have to be stored somewhere. The information will have to be stored somewhere. It will have to be managed by someone. So then, depending on what tooling the company has and how well it's set up, again, it may take some time. It may be the matter of weeks. It will depend. I think the biggest challenge there is really the scattering of information across different tools. Where, I'll be looking for definition of my critical data elements that are part of data products to establish the ownership. And I'll be doing it in a completely different tool than where I will be doing, the actual transformation of the data for some specific consumption. And again, the collaboration, the integration, and the information sharing may be the challenge here.
Do you believe that data mesh is sustainable concept in the long term? Because, there are discussions on the market if data mesh is that concept or not.
I honestly don't know at this point. What is interesting is that, again, even various analysts are basically talking about data mesh as a concept that is almost dead, or they would like it to be dead. But at the same time, they are still talking about data products and the decentralization of the teams. So it sounds like sometimes it's just like semantics and just like maybe a little bit different definition of what data mesh is trying to solve. I think the concept of treating data as a product and aiming for decentralization, that is maybe with some sort of policy making on top of that, and some sort of established process for the company that is then enforced in the decentralized teams, that is definitely sustainable. That is definitely, in my mind, the future of how the companies should work. But it may take some time for different companies to get there. And with data mesh, it's also important that it's just not for everyone at this point. It could be, you're basically adding some level of abstraction on top of already tough job, and not everyone will be able to do that. And I don't, again, mean it in a bad way. Not everyone should do that. It's not a bad thing to not achieve data mesh if you don't have a need for that. So,
Peter, thank you for sharing your insights. My today's guest was Petr Žáček, Director of Product Management at Atacama. Follow the Adastra Digital website on LinkedIn, Facebook, and most importantly, subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google. This is Iva Karhanová from Adastra, signing off.